Before we get to episode 149, I wanted to do one final call for Believe You Can, the talent show presented by the Keystone Chapter of the National Federation of the Blind of Pennsylvania. It's the 16th of October. That's this Saturday night. Go to BelieveYouCan.live to buy tickets.
From Studio B in Swarthmore, this is the iCantCU podcast with David. It's like blind people for dummies.
Hello there, and welcome to episode 149 of the iCantCU podcast. My name is David, at David Benj on all the socials. I really appreciate you joining me for this episode. And I've got a few things to talk about, but what I want to lead off with is you know what. Yep, I'm still top of the table in the All-Blind Football League. I had a blowout win this week, 185 or so to 97, and I feel really good about the 5-0 start. I think I only won 5 games last year for the whole season. So I am doing great, and I actually also have the most points now. So I am leading on both sides of the coin, and I'm very excited about it. I'm just hoping that this week's game is not trouble because I've got so much going on with Believe You Can, and I'll get to Believe You Can in a little bit. But I do have a few other things to talk about, and as I had talked about last week, I'll start off with this. I did have my cornea appointment last week, and you know when you take your car in because you're having some trouble with it, and you get there, and the mechanic says, I don't see anything wrong with it. We had a car that was infamous for this. It would do all sorts of stuff until we took it to the dealer, and when we got it to the dealer, they would find nothing wrong. It was an Oldsmobile, and one of the things that went wrong, it had lights that flipped up. I don't know. I don't think they make those anymore because this got kind of dangerous. We would be driving down the street at night, and all of a sudden the lights would close. And, fortunately, the times that it happened were in our development, in our neighborhood, when it happened most. And we didn't have any trouble, but we took it into the car dealer. They couldn't find anything. Well, last Friday, when I went to my cornea appointment, everything looked great. In fact, when I got up that morning, my vision was great. And I could see everything as clear as I can normally see everything, which, of course, again, isn't great. But, for the way things have been, it was awesome. I was excited. My eyes felt great. They weren't bothering me or anything. So I got there, and one thing that was really cool, and I've said this for a long time, I used to go to eye doctors so frequently. I had all the lines memorized from 20/60 and up. That was the best I could ever read, was the 20/60 line. So, I used to joke around with the people, and as I think I explained previously, I would say, I can't read the DA06 line, but, so they would write down. One time a person, wrote down that I could read that line, even though she didn't even show it to me. And the doctor came in and said, you read the 20/60 line. I'm like, no, I didn't. She says, well, it says it right here. I said, I was talking about it, but I just have them all memorized from that. And at that time, I remember saying to Liz, I said, it'd be cool if they could change it. Each time you would do it, it would be different. So once I got into the room and I sat in the chair, Lena, I believe her name was, said, okay, I'm going to, put some things up on the screen. Now, you don't see anything in your right eye, right? I said, no, I don't see anything there. And she turned the light off and on. I said, I had my other eye covered. I said, no, I don't see that at all. She said, all right, well, okay, try to read this. And I'm looking and I'm thinking, that looks like a V. I said, what line is that? And she said 2400. So that's 20 over 400. I know sometimes when I say it, it confuses people. They're thinking I'm saying 2400, like 2400. I'm not. So she said, I said, that's the 2400 line. And she's like, yeah. She said, we can change them. I said, so the next time I come, you could put some other letter up there. She said, yeah. And I thought, and I explained what I just said, Liz and I, she doesn't know Liz. So I said, my wife and I, we're talking about that years ago because, I have them all memorized. And she said, yeah, I could even change it now if I wanted. And I thought that was so cool. So then she said, all right, how about the next line? And I'm thinking, there's no way I'm going to read the next line, because usually the next line is the 20/200 line, which, on a previous on the previous setup is an S and an L. And I can usually get that, even if my vision is terrible, I can usually get that because of the corner on the L. The S I can't normally read, but the corner on the L I could read just to verify that it is S and L. Not SNL like Saturday Night Live, S and L. So she goes the next line down, and I struggled, but I was able to read it. And I said, wow. I said, that wasn't as difficult as I thought it was going to be. And she said, all right, we'll try the next one. I said, oh, you're really pushing it now. And I was able, after a couple of minutes, to figure out what it was. And I said, holy cow. I said, what is that, the 2100 line? She said, oh, no, that's 2300. I said, wait, what? She said, it went 2400, 2350, 2300, and then the next one down, which I couldn't see, was 20/250. So, that was different as well. And I actually talked to the doctor about that. I said, when I was at the office in Philly back in, I think it was late August, I said, your setup there is 400, 200, and so forth, right? And she said, yeah. I said, so we really don't know how this compares to that. But I thought that was kind of interesting that, again, I struggled with it, with the, the 20/300 line, but I was able to read it. And, look, there's usually, just in case you need to figure something out, because, and I was always made fun of when I did this in front of the doctor, who was a friend of ours, back when I was a kid. There's 26 letters. And I guess I'm telling you how to cheat on the eye test. There's 26 letters. They usually don't repeat from one line to the next. So, if in this instance, now again, I can't say, for the ones that are generated like this now, but in the old instance where it goes 400, 200, and so forth, the E doesn't come back in the next line. Like I said, it's E for the 400 line, S, L for the 200 line. I don't remember what the 100, or it's either 100 or 120. So by default, okay, when you get to the one after the 200 line, you got to knock off the E, the S, and the L. So now you're down to 23 choices. So it's just, that's just something that, again, at least in my mind, when I was looking at something, and I figured, okay, look, it's kind of rounded. Let's see, we didn't have a C yet. Maybe it could be a C. Maybe it could be a G. Maybe it could be an O. It can't be a D because, the left side of the D is straight, and there's that little angle down at the bottom and the top. So that's how I used to, and again, as I've said in the past, people who can't see figure out different ways to do things and figure out what something says. And so all that went well. The doctor looked. Actually, Lena had taken my pressure, which was 6 and 20 something. I don't remember what it was. It's, again, the only time I'm going to do something for my right eye is, if there's pain, there's nothing to save there. Because it's got a really thick cataract in there, or they don't call it thick. I forget what they call it. Full, whatever. It's, it's dense. So really the only thing I would do there is, for comfort, if something, if it started bothering me, I'd have surgery, but otherwise. So when the doctor looked, she said, no, it looks great. The swelling seems to be down. Maybe the drops are working. And again, that day, it was a nice day here in suburban Philadelphia that day. And I'm thinking, well, maybe that's the reason, it felt great. And I asked her, I said, humidity an issue? And she said, it could be. I explained to her how I play with Ziggy, and, sometimes when I am, like if I am down on the floor with him and, reaching over to grab something and I'm, on my knees and my elbows to grab something because he's under the coffee table with something and I'm playing around with him, sometimes it makes my eye hurt a little bit. And she said, it shouldn't be an issue with that. she said, just watch. If it hurts once you're done that, then you have to worry about what might be going on there. But she thought everything looked great and there was no need for surgery. And not only that, but she didn't want to see me for 6 months. So I thought that was good news, and I felt good. I felt good about it, and all day I felt great about it, actually, until that night when it was horrible again. And again, I don't know if it was from me doing something, not doing something, something I ate, something I did, something I didn't do. And then off and on since then, this morning I got up and it's horrible. My vision is horrible today, to the point where, and it's not that way right at this moment, but earlier today, and I'm recording this on Thursday, the day it drops, it was so weird and messed up that, it makes me nauseous sometimes. And I think I had mentioned that last week. So, I'm like, a lot of times I will walk around, my eyes will be closed just to stop the, feeling weird from my crazy vision. Again, my eyes are open now as I do this because it's not as bad as it was earlier. So I guess it's just something that it's just going to keep going on and on and on. And, I'll just have to deal with like anything else. So that was, I was kind of happy with that because I really, in my mind, I had set it up that I was going to have surgery and we were going to have to go from there. And then I had to figure when was going to be the best time for this surgery between Liz's schedule and my schedule with the National Federation of the Blind State Convention in November, when I'm presenting, everything I read, it said, allow 2 to 3 weeks of recovery time. And again, more so for the eye, not necessarily, okay, I can't lift stuff. Well, if I'm traveling, I'm not really lifting, maybe I'm lifting a suitcase, but, otherwise I think I'd be okay. And then I started thinking, well, when would a good time, maybe that week of Thanksgiving would be a good time to do it. Liz would be off a couple days at the end of that week. Jane will be home. So, so I'd already figured that was going to be the answer. And, I'm glad it wasn't, because whenever you go in and do something to the eye, it could, set something else off. So, so that was good news. I was happy. And it's just been so busy between that. I actually got out 2 days in a row. So that was Friday. Saturday was our first in-person Keystone Chapter meeting in actually 18 months, or actually 19 months, because we last met in February of 2020, and then we didn't have a meeting in March, and we've met virtually ever since. Now, there was a virtual component, so if you didn't want to come into the Penn Museum where the meeting is held, you could still log on from home and be part of the meeting. And it was nice to be together with everyone, and I don't know that everyone was vaccinated. But, again, I washed my hands. I did what I could. We had to wear a mask. That's the rules at the Penn Museum. But the really cool thing after the meeting, and I should say that this meeting we distributed the T-shirts. So most of the T-shirts have been distributed, or maybe half of the T-shirts have been distributed. So Liz and I drove in. I didn't drive in. I rode in with Liz. She helped distribute the T-shirts. Actually, she did it. She set them all up, and we went through everything, and she gave them to the people who had ordered them, who were there. And once the meeting ended, she boxed up the other T-shirts that where folks hadn't come and came home. So Ziggy wasn't cooped up for a long period of time, because I think he was still cooped up for about 5 hours. But the cool thing about the Penn Museum, and I know I've talked about it, going back in previous episodes, this time we were able to go into the museum proper for free and to test out IRA. IRA is a service where you connect with someone, a trained person who is getting paid by IRA to help you do tasks, whether you need to change your thermostat or you need to read a checkbook or a credit card statement or whatever. At certain places, whether it's targets around the country or some airports. I don't think all airports have it. You can use it for free, and it's very, very useful. So this was my first time using it extensively. I've used it in the past. As I think I mentioned last week, there was one night everybody in the apartment when we had the condo was sleeping, and I could not get my phone to read to me the Wi-Fi password, and I had it memorized, but I was leaving out a number or something. I don't remember exactly what. So I said, I'm going to try Ira, and I tried it, and bing bang boom, it was done. And so at the Penn Museum, because the University of Pennsylvania has a contract with them, you can use it anywhere on campus. The Penn Museum, of course, being on their campus and part of the university. So after the meeting, we got to go around the museum, and again, it's one of my favorite places to go. There's stuff there that is so old, and I don't know how I missed this, or maybe I forgot about it. They have something there. It's some sort of doorstop, and it was this big hunk of something. I don't know. I don't remember if it was rock or wood that was carved, but it was like a doorstop. It was around 5,000 years old. Now, that was in glass, and this was not one of those tours of the museum where you could touch stuff. We've had that, and there's other episodes. In the show notes, I'll link to an episode or two where I talk about that. At one point, going back a couple of years, we did a tour of the museum, and we were allowed to touch stuff, and there was actually a newspaper reporter there. Those are those things that used to get delivered on your doorstep every morning. It's full of paper and got a lot of ads, and yeah, I know nobody gets them anymore. But we were written up in the newspaper, in the Philadelphia Inquirer, and there were some pictures of us, and it was very cool. It actually ended up only being me, Simon Bonenfant, and Harriet Go, who was the president of the Keystone Chapter. And it was just a lot of fun. And it was awesome to be able to touch like the hieroglyphics and stuff like that. And again, probably the oldest thing I've touched was this. It's almost like a throne. It's got hieroglyphics around the bottom of it, and it's got a thing sitting on top of, I guess, a person. It's too tall. I can't reach the top. We could touch the feet and, maybe up to the knee, but that's about as far as it goes. It's around 4,000 years old, and it's just amazing to think about how many other people touched this, looked at this, going back thousands of years. I have a coin that my dad found, when he used to go into supermarkets. He used to, fix them up. They used to be closed down chain stores that were leaving the inner city. And he would, fix them up and then reopen and, run it for a while and then sell it off. He was basically, flipping markets. He would take something that, was basically abandoned by, Acme or A&P, or those chains, and, painting it up, fixing it, making it look nice, loading it up with inventory and, the newest kind of cash registers at the time, which, I'm talking about mid-'70s. So at this point, they still weren't scanners. Not until around 1980. But so when they would pull the checkouts out, there was always coins and whatnot. And, sometimes it's just, here's a 1972 quarter, big deal. But he found all sorts of coins there that helped his coin collection along. And one of the things that he found was this shekel from Hamburg, Germany, from 1720 something. So it's right around 400 years old. And I remember when back in the old days when I used Prodigy, I think, to get on the internet, if you remember Prodigy back in the day. It might have been AOL back, again, the internet was there, but you went through one of those services to get there, or maybe it was even CompuServe. And I guess I'm dating myself by saying all these words. So I remember going to different coin sites and asking, hey, how much do you think this is worth? And I had a picture of it that I probably took with my film camera and then scanned with my scanner to post. How much is this worth? And, the range in price was $3 to $6. So it wasn't worth much. But again, the history that you can hold in your hand, you think, I wonder what this bought. How much was it? What could I get for something like this? It was just cool. So the Penn Museum is like that. And, again, this wasn't one of the touch tours that, we did, a few times in the past few years. But still very cool. And for whatever reason, it was not very busy there. And so what we did after the meeting was we kind of split up and everyone went on their own for the most part. And we dialed into IRA. And what IRA is, it's basically like, think of, if you're having trouble somewhere and, what do? You call a friend. Well, just imagine instead of calling them, you FaceTime because you need them to see something. Now, I didn't see the IRA rep, but she could use my camera. In fact, I'll post, I'm going to try and post in the actual show notes on iCantCU.com. I'll post a couple of pictures that were taken by the IRA agent at the museum. I can't call them blind selfies because basically all I did was hold the camera. I didn't snap the picture. She snapped the picture. I didn't, she told me, okay, a little bit to the left, a little bit to the right. I had to wear my earbuds because it was just easier to hear because it's a very big space and I didn't want to hold the phone up to my ear so I could hear what was going on because I have to have it in front of me so that when I come to a display that, I want to take a look at, the IRA agent has to see what I'm seeing. And then basically what I would do, I would find where the little blurb was about whatever I'm looking at. And they would say, okay, hold on. And they would take a picture of it and then they would read it to me. And in some instances, I would stay while they were reading it to me and try and see what she was telling me. And her name was Kristen, by the way, what I was seeing and what she was saying and try and figure out. Other times I would take a look at something and then I would say, what does this say? I said, just tell me what she would read like the title of whatever it was. And I'd say, oh yeah, let me hear about that. And in an instance, there was it wasn't a part of the actual Rosetta Stone, but it was I don't remember if it was a plaster version, a plastic version, whatever, hanging on the wall in this one section of the museum. And, the original is in the British Museum in London, which when Jane had studied abroad, we went to that museum and it was sitting there right in the middle of the floor, this giant Rosetta Stone without glass being around it. And the only thing it had around it, it had something low. And I said to Liz, maybe I can touch it. It's not in glass. Can I touch it? She's like, I wouldn't touch it because, it's, again, I don't know how old the Rosetta Stone is, but it's not new. But I didn't touch it because I was afraid I'd get the what for, then. And, I don't know if the British Museum does what the Penn Museum does, occasionally having, a touch tour of the museum for folks who are blind and visually impaired. But, listening to Kristen read about the replica of the rune stone or the part of the rune stone that was hanging on the wall there, made me think back to actually being with the actual one at the British Museum. And it was just very cool. But while she was reading that, I was moving on to the next exhibit, just wandering around. And so the museum was awesome, as always. And I never realized this, and I guess it's because there were so few people there when we were there on Saturday. The room that has the Asia stuff, so mostly China, but there were some Japanese things and some other Asian stuff in this one giant room with this high ceiling that is just huge. My cane tapping across the floor just echoed throughout. And when, voiceover was going off or whatnot, I could hear it echoing through. And it was so cool to hear it in this room. And I did take they have these 2 winged lions there that are from China. They're huge. They're, probably about 6 feet long by, 8 or 10 feet high. And They kind of reminded me, there used to be a Chinese restaurant out at a mall near here. And I always said to Liz, as we would walk past this restaurant at the mall, and they'd have these, they were much smaller, these lions on either side, maybe they were dragons at the Chinese restaurant, on either side of the door. And I thought, man, these things would look great at the end of our driveway. So when I was at the Penn Museum the other day, I thought the same thing for these two winged lions that that were in there. Now, I don't know how you would get them out, because they must weigh tons, because they were, so huge, but very cool, very old. And as often as I've seen them, I probably never read about them. And like I said, there were two, and they were across the room from one another. And again, this room was, I don't know, maybe 60 feet, wide at its widest, maybe more. And these are across the room. Well, one is a girl, one is a boy of these lions. And they said how, in the little blurb that was on the thing, on the display, on the item, it said, the stripes are vertical. So the vertical shows that it's a girl, and the ones that were horizontal was a boy. And I couldn't see this, but evidently the girl had two horns, the boy had one horn. I can only imagine what the one horn was was representing, but I just thought that was interesting. That I never realized that one was a male and one was female. So I thought that was kind of cool. But just listening to the echo in that room, it was just awesome. It was just so cool. So it was an enjoyable time at the museum, and to use Aira. I don't know that I would use it all the time, but it made it easier to figure out where things were being on my own. For example, if I'm looking at something, sometimes I couldn't find, when I'm on my own and I'm using either Seeing AI or Envision or one of the other apps that read things, I was basically just holding it and moving it around, trying to find, waiting for for my phone to start reading something to me. With the agent, she would say, okay, tilt down, tilt to the left, tilt, whatever. And then she would see where it was. And she's like, okay, it's right over there, go over there, blah, 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 blah. So that made it easy. And so it was interesting. And I did enjoy using Aira with it. As I've mentioned before, Aira is a subscription-based service. So, you pay like you used to pay for mobile phones. And I don't think I'd use it enough to warrant paying that amount. You can use it for one call per day for free. And that's, around the house, that's pretty much all I would need. Now, I almost thought about using it last night, because when I shut the dishwasher at 3 o'clock this morning, or whatever time it was, it all of a sudden started running. And that doesn't usually happen. And I don't know. It ran for a few minutes, and I don't know if it was a heat thing. I don't know. The last light on all the way down the right end was on. I had no idea. So I thought about using it, and then it stopped. So I didn't, and there were no lights on. So I figured, well, I don't have to worry about it. So I started it as normal, and who knows what happened. I'll talk to Liz and see when she comes home today, what it said. But for the most part, I'm okay using one of the apps that I have. Like I said, Seeing AI, which is all app-based, and then Envision, same thing. But Envision is, you pay for it per year or per month, depending. Seeing AI is free, and that's a Microsoft app developed by them. And I'm hoping, as I'm sitting in my chair here, I'm hoping every time I turn a little bit, it's squeaking, and I can hear it. I hope that you cannot, but I can't do anything about it at this moment, other than maybe move my chair and stand up. So after the Penn Museum, a few of us went out for a late lunch, and there's a Shake Shack around the corner from the Penn Museum. So we walked over there, and it was really nice to be with the folks from the Keystone Chapter again. Again, it's been quite a while, and it was nice to be around the folks again. And 5 days out since then. I still feel okay, so it seems like that's been all right, and we'll see how that continues. But So let's get into, that was the Penn Museum. And again, it was just awesome being there. And we're going to be meeting there each month now for the next few months. Not that we can go into the museum for free like we did this past weekend, but still, I know that there's going to be times, especially because of the way the train schedule is, that I'm going to have time to walk around and check out the museum. And again, just a place I love to be and wander around. Briefly, I'll touch on this and then I'll get into Believe You Can. This past week, Stacie Leap had asked me to be part of this roundtable at this thing called CSP. And because it's Blind Equality Achievement Month, she thought it would be good to feature blind folks during this one segment of their monthly meeting. And it was awesome. I was there with NFB of Pennsylvania President Lynn Heitz and Greater Philly Chapter President. So you can see I was at the bottom of the barrel here. Greater Philly Chapter President Denise Brown. Both those two ladies have masters. I got nothing. My certificate from Chubb is all I got. I guess that's what I got. So it was a lot of fun, and to be on that with Stacie. And one thing that I took away from it was that Stacie should have her own podcast. I've been harping on Lisa to get one. And now that we do the White Canes Connect, she's kind of got one, and she probably should do one on her own as well. But after listening to Stacie, moderate the three of us, she was really good at it, and it was just something that I hope she pursues. It's a shame that wasn't recorded because it would have been a great podcast episode. I certainly could have played it as another bonus episode, and I appreciate you listening to those bonus episodes I posted earlier this week. There was no way to get those out quickly, and I'm glad I did, especially for both of them. Believe You Can interview, important to try and drive sales, and then for the Blind Women's Empowerment Conference that's coming up tomorrow, the 15th of October, was also important to get out because I wanted to help get some folks to that. And when I say folks, women. So, and you don't have to be blind to go to that. You should be a woman, though. So hopefully that will help get some folks to that event. And hopefully the one that I played, episode 147, which was basically White Canes Connect episode 5, hopefully that will help sell some tickets to Believe You Can. We were also on Blind Abilities episode 790. So if you want to look for that, that was my first time on there. I know Lisa has been on actually as a host with Simon. In this instance, Simon was the host and was the interviewer, talking to Lisa and Harriet and Stacie and myself. Lisa and Stacie are going to be the hosts of Believe You Can. I'm going to be I'm going to say this, and again, a lot of people aren't going to know who I'm talking about. I'm going to be the Johnny Olson of Believe You Can. Johnny Olson, actually, the anniversary of his death was the 12th, so it's fresh in my mind from that. He was the announcer on The Price is Right. He was the guy that said, Mary Smith, come on down. That's going to be me, except I'm not going to say come on down. I'm going to tell people how to vote and introduce Harriet and introduce Lisa and Stacie, and that's what I'm going to do. Unless the storms that are coming on Saturday knock somebody's power out, in which case I might do more, or if my power's out, I might not do any of it. So Believe You Can 2021 is coming up. It's just amazing to me. It's this Saturday. It's amazing where everybody comes from. We have a few folks from where the Keystone Chapter is, southeastern Pennsylvania, Philadelphia and the five counties, I guess it's 4 counties that surround it. But we have Angelina, who's actually kicking off the show. She's from Pittsburgh. We have a comedian from Massachusetts. We have somebody singing and playing the piano from Virginia. We've got a guy in Georgia whose name just happens to be George. He'll be singing, and he had a great voice. And we did these sound checks. So it was interesting to listen. Like, George was so happy and excited. It sounded like to be on the show. And it was so nice to hear everybody's excitement for it. There's a person named Jana from Nashville. There's Rob from Kansas. There's a Jasmine who's 13 from Vancouver, Washington, and I think that's it for distance. I might be forgetting one person. Dezman, who was on last year's show, he's from Baltimore. He'll be on. I mean, it is just amazing how the word got out and folks jumped on this. This year we have 14 performers. We are going to be down one because somebody from the Keystone Chapter, her name is Esther, another very friendly and very happy and bubbly person. She's sick, so she cannot perform, which is disappointing because she sounded great, in the sound checks that we did. And it was nice that we did these sound checks because, sometimes the audio sounded funny. Again, we're using Zoom, not the best platform to do, musical performances. So it was good that we did it. And some folks, we spent quite a while to get their sound right and to get their audio right. As far as, some people are singing with almost like a karaoke track. And we tried to do, Joe Drenth is the technology behind the whole show. And he's the one that, will be running all that. And so we tried to get him some of the audio tracks, but there's that lag, and it just didn't sound right, especially with Jana. There's a part where she's singing, and then there's some backup singers, that's on the track. She's singing live, but and it was just off by only a second or two, but it sounded terrible. When she played it on her end, after we got her audio right, it sounded great. And the audience gets to vote on who moves along to the finals, and then everybody votes for one person in the finals. And there's, like I said, 14 acts. If you think all of them are great and they should all go to the finals, you could raise your hand and vote for each one to go to the finals. But once we vote for the final winner, that is only you only get one vote for that. So it's just been a lot of work. So between that and the 2 White Canes Connect episodes that I've been editing and trying to push out, it has just been, like a full-time job. I feel like I've been working overtime, to be honest. And as what usually happens when you're trying to get something done, and I don't want to say I rushed, but, I felt like I was under the gun because, for the Blind Women's Empowerment Conference, I didn't want that to get out too late because, it's Friday. And same thing with Believe You Can. It's Saturday. They had to get out. And, so I was editing them. And that's another thing that I realized as I'm editing them, I like doing it. There's, if you listen to episode 147, iCantCU.com/147, there's a part where Lisa was talking about Dezman, and because we're also in the Philadelphia area, when you say greater, when you're thinking of an NFB chapter and you say greater, you automatically, without even thinking, your voice, your tongue says Philadelphia, greater or Greater Philly chapter. And she had done that. She said Greater Philly. She's like, wait a minute, Baltimore chapter. And she's kind of laughing. I took it out, and it's, other than her laughing a little bit because of the error, you wouldn't know. It could sound, with the edit, it almost sounds like maybe 2 of us or more than 2 of us were in the same room, and, somebody kicked her in the shins, under the table, whatever. But I took it out, and it sounded great. And I really like doing that. And as I've mentioned before, I don't usually edit this show. I will pause when I have to cough. I've already done that a couple of times today. You can hear my voice going in and out because I've been talking a lot between Believe You Can and I guess talking to Ziggy. There's nobody else home to talk to. So please, I really appreciate it if you would buy a ticket. You can go to BelieveYouCan.live. I will put links in the show notes that go directly to a ticket where it takes you right to PayPal. You can bypass the website and just buy the ticket. They're $10 and $25. And we're also doing this year, we actually sent out, when I sent the email out about the show, some people say, well, I'm busy that day, but I'd like to donate some money. If you go to supportkeystonechapter.org, that will take you right to the page where you can just make a donation to the Keystone Chapter. And again, that's supportkeystonechapter.org. And again, any form of support would be great. And you can, if you go to supportkeystonechapter.org, you can donate any amount. You could donate $1, you can donate $5, you can donate $1,000. Any amount. You could donate $37.82. So I appreciate any of that, and it goes for a good cause. We do a lot of work in and around the Philly area, whether it's the kids at St. Lucie, who, as I mentioned before, coming up for the holidays, we buy each kid in the school a Christmas gift. And I can say Christmas because it is St. Lucie. It's not, I mean, maybe there's blind Jewish kids there, but I don't know, or blind Muslim kids. I don't know. And listen, when you're a kid and you get a gift, you don't care what it's called, right? I mean, does it matter what it's for? It's not a religious gift. Last year, 2 years ago when we went, a lot of the gifts were like, earbuds and stuff like that. So, the kids are happy to get them. They're very excited when we come in and show up. Usually we bring something to eat. When Liz and I went a couple of years ago before COVID, we had taken cupcakes and, had the gifts. And as I mentioned, I wish I could remember this kid's name. One kid was in trouble. He didn't get a cupcake. I don't know if he ever got his gift, but he didn't get a cupcake. He was bad. He was in the principal's office, but I don't remember his name. So hopefully he's doing he's doing okay and not in juvie by now. So please support keystonechapter.org or go to BelieveYouCan.live and buy a ticket to the talent show this weekend. That's at 7 p.m. Eastern on Saturday night, the 16th. Happens to be a friend of mine's birthday, so I have not talked to him in a while, but I'll talk to him sometime that day to wish him a happy birthday. So lastly, the episode, real quickly, the White Canes Connect episode 6, which ran as a bonus episode here, as episode 148. That came together very quickly. Lisa did the interview. She primarily did it instead of both of us doing, because we wanted to keep that theme. It's a women's conference for women. Why should I be there? And I wasn't, other than doing the intro and the outro, where we talked about a few other things on the outro and basically just set up the interview on the intro. It was nice to do that part. And as I mentioned Stacie a few minutes ago, I can envision where Stacie is doing some interviews where Lisa and I just do the intro and maybe the outro, and Stacie's doing the interviewing for 4 episodes of White Canes Connect. And, I don't know that she listens to this, but we haven't told her about that yet. So that might be news to her if she listens. It was just nice to have Denise and Katrina on to talk about the Blind Women's Empowerment Conference coming up on Friday. That's tomorrow, the 15th. If you're interested, again, if you're a guy, not really for you, I'm not going. But if you're a girl, blind or sighted, they're looking to get a wide variety of folks, whether, as Denise said, whether it's you've got a PhD or GED, they'd like you there, again, especially if you're blind. But you don't have to be blind for that. You do have to be blind to be part of the Believe You Can talent show, but not for the Blind Women's Empowerment Conference. It's in its 6th year, so it's just been a great thing that's been going on. And the last 2 years obviously have been virtual. Before that, it's held during the DC NFB of DC State Convention, and I know the wording there is a little weird since DC isn't a state, but it's run as an affiliate of the NFB, and there's a chapter or two within that state affiliate. So I was happy to push those out, but again, it was a lot of work to get them done, especially the interview that Lisa had done, because I wasn't there, so I wasn't making mental notes for, like, when Lisa and I do a show and we do an interview, I'm thinking, okay, I got to chop that out later. since I wasn't listening when it was on live, when they were not live, but when they were talking to one another, I had to go back through and listen and then say, wait, what was that there? Or what was that sound or whatnot? And I should bring this up as well. And I think I mentioned it last week. The episode for Believe You Can, the White Canes Connect episode 5 that ran here as episode 147, that was probably the most difficult thing I've ever tried to edit. And I don't know why usually when you take the audio from a Zoom call, you can take out each track individually. And I think I mentioned this before where they just weren't aligning. And I didn't know why. And after everything was said and done, I was going to go to Reddit and, there's a podcasting group there and I was going to post something there. But in the meantime, Jeff Thompson, who is, I guess he's the creator of Blind Abilities. He wasn't on the episode that I was on. Simon was on it, doing the interview. I mean, we talked to Jeff that night, but he had emailed Lisa saying, it was difficult to edit because, things didn't line up. And I guess that's because, people muted themselves. And I wonder if that was where the issue was. All of a sudden somebody who, for example, in the episode that I'm talking about, Lisa and I were always, right on. There were no issues. Harriet, for the most part, was right on. And then Dezman and Jan were way off. But at one point, Harriet's was way off, even though it started out being on. And so it makes sense that when you mute yourself using the Zoom mute button, that messes with the track. It must stop your track. So that is not convenient. And I actually had to use the multi-track version of the audio to do that show, which was disappointing because, there was an instance where Harriet coughed and she wasn't speaking. So, had I had the individual tracks, I would have just, taken that out and it wouldn't have been noticeable. But in that instance, since I was using the track that had everybody's audio on it, I couldn't do that because somebody was speaking at the time. So, but I do enjoy the editing, and I'm looking forward to doing more of White Canes Connect because there's more editing involved there because, we have music tracks. And if you haven't listened, take a listen and let me know what you think of the audio or the music tracks in there where I divide everything up with these music stingers. It just makes it easy to, do the intros and outros. And it always sounds a little bit different, depending on the time of the call and whatnot. So it's nice to have that little break. So it kind of flushes what you were just hearing out of your mind. And then, so when you hear, me intro the track and then the music comes on and then I come on again right out of the music, if it sounds different, it doesn't matter because I've got that music in between. So you kind of forget how exactly I sounded on the other side of it. So I do like doing that. And I am looking around. One of the people who wanted to be on Believe You Can, but then had to drop out because he had a scheduling conflict, was a guy who goes to George Mason University, and he composes music tracks for podcasts and YouTube and stuff like that for folks who need, intros and things like that. I was thinking about contacting him and getting a couple of things, both intro and outro music and a stinger, which would, 2 or 3 seconds of something that would sound similar to the intro and outro. But then I was thinking yesterday, during football season, each week I give an update on, my FC Tunguska team in the All Blind Fantasy League. I think it'd be cool if I had some sort of either ESPN sounding music or Monday Night Football sounding music or marching band sounding music that sounds like you're at a football game. So I'm going to kick that around. Again, too much on my plate at this moment. Maybe next week or the week after, once I have a minute to digest everything from Believe You Can and doing these podcasts so close together and knocking them out. I don't know how I would have done it if I had an actual job because, I was down here even during the day like I am now. Ziggy's in his cage, and, I hate to do that during the day with him because I like him out and about and, playing with him and whatnot. But it's been a lot of fun. It's been a lot of fun, and, I don't know what I'm going to do when I don't have all this stuff to do. So, I'm also the one that with Believe You Can that, sends out the thank you emails. I think that's really important because I've done other fundraisers for, paid, to donate money during other fundraisers and never got a thank you. And I think that's terrible. Everybody gets, when you use PayPal or any of the online credit card processors, you always get a confirmation from them that may say thank you. But, I like a personal thank you from somebody from the organization. And more than a couple of times have not gotten that. And I don't think that's right. It's important to thank people for donating or, giving money for a cause or an event. So if you buy a ticket, you'll hear from me because I will send you a thank you note via email, of course. So again, BelieveYouCan.live to buy tickets. My voice is just about to quit, so I'm going to quit, and and I'm sure you're breathing a sigh of relief there. But I really do appreciate you listening to episode 149 of the iCantCU podcast. Please rate, review, and follow, and pass the show on to your friends so they will listen and maybe gain something from it. And if you've got questions, comments, have show ideas, please reach out 646-926-6350. Leave your name and town. And let me know if it's okay to use your voice on an upcoming episode. I would really appreciate that. And then we'll put you on an upcoming episode, especially if it's a question. I mean, I'll put you on for just about anything. If you want to, if you want to rant for 2.5 minutes about me, I would treasure that. So I do appreciate you listening to this episode. Thank you so much. Please stay safe, be well, and I will talk to you next week.
Thank you for listening to the I Can't See You podcast with David. Please rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen. And don't forget to share the podcast with your friends.